Welcome to the Launch Party podcast, and we are finally back live again, lifting off towards stratospheric success, and we want to take you guys along for the ride with us. Today we got an interesting topic, and hopefully you guys enjoy and can kind of go through this brainstorming activity along for the ride with us. Esteban, what do we got going on?
Glad to be back on here. It's been a couple weeks. Summer's definitely gotten off to an eventful start for the both of us. I
Mm-hmm.
am back out in back in the Great Plains, back in the middle of nowhere Midwest. Staying in Missouri right now, but I'm mostly working back out here in Illinois, and gonna be here for a couple months or so, good chunk of the summer, and then I'll get back on out the country again. Uh,
Mm.
but but yeah, basically been past couple weeks just been grinding. Haven't done anything too fun outside of work, but it's been cool. Just been kind of locked in, focused, working with some coworkers here. We're all living together. Just going to the gym, going out there. Not too many distractions, but also not too much to look at when you look outside of the window. So it's been nice. How about you? Something kind of cool happened for you?
Yeah, well, I did graduate for my undergraduate at Georgia Southern University, so we had a nice little ceremony. Family came. Um, yeah, and what I've been telling people, it's like I knew I was going to graduate 4 years ago, so it's just another day in the office for me. Just another day, another dollar. We already knew this day was coming, but it definitely feels good to get that off my to-do list or my goals. Graduate college, dual major, finance and accounting. As y'all probably know, I start working in September for PwC in the Atlanta office. That's where I did my internship last summer. And what I got going on now, obviously, the past couple of weeks, I kind of been slacking off in terms of podcast, gym, just kind of tried to live it up in Statesboro and make some great memories down there and bonfires and going out, doing all that stuff for the last time. But now we're back on the grind. Today I started studying for the CPA exam, which for those of you who do not know, it's basically the bar for accounting. And I have this software called Becker that the company actually provides for us. Um, and it's very intensive. It so there's four different sections. I want to try to pass one a month ish. So by the time I start working, I'm almost done with my CPA licensing requirements. And each test has let's call them 6 to 8 sections. Okay, and then throughout, like halfway through, there's a simulation exam, and then two big simulations at the end, and then a practice exam. And then so each section has like 4 to 6 modules, and each module has like 5 to 10 videos that are 20 minutes long, and then a textbook you got to read, and then practice multiple choice questions, long answer questions, and flashcards and everything. So trying to most of my summer is just going to be studying 6 hours a day and then going to the gym to to relieve some of that stress. But if you guys didn't know, that's what the CPA is, and that's what it entails, especially if you want to rip the band-aid off and just try to get it over with like I am.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I've heard CPA definitely is one of the harder professional certifications that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, definitely good to just go ahead and crank it.
Yeah, I mean, how you been? How's the work up there in the Midwest?
It's cool. You know, the people out here are definitely different. They're
Mm-hmm.
definitely really nice. Um, Already having some systems to get installed, some solar systems. So
Nice.
starting to see some of the fruit of my labor in a physical sense. And yeah, started to meet a couple friends out here and kind of establish myself a little bit. You know, I hope not to be here for too long, but it's like a little nice little spot that I know I'll always have if I want to come back and just kind of decompress, just focus on work and make some money while I'm at it. And yeah, definitely not as nice as Columbia was. Was that our last episode? No, that was our
Yeah,
almost last episode. Was
yeah,
when I was in
maybe two
Columbia.
ago.
So yeah, got my eyes set on heading back out there for the fall, but or maybe even just later on in the summer. You know, if all goes well.
Back to
But
Medellin.
oh yeah, yeah for
All
sure.
right.
I'll probably do a little bit more hopping around this time though.
Mm-hmm.
Explore some of the rest of the country. You know, a little bit of Bogota, a little bit of Cartagena. Maybe hit Brazil or Argentina a little bit. but definitely want to really get the full medieval experience out there. But weather out here, comparatively
Hmm.
to Atlanta, it's way better.
Yeah,
So
well, right now it just depends on the time of year.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in a couple months, from what I've heard, it's not too bad. Partially, not
Hmm.
only because it's more north, but because in the Great Plains there's just tons of wind, always
Yeah.
wind.
Yeah.
So we've got a nice breeze ripping out here.
Yeah.
Clouds,
So,
thunderstorms come out of nowhere. It's weird, but
uh-huh.
it's fun.
So hot and humid in Georgia and South Georgia, especially. It's
Hmm.
brutal.
Yep. So yeah, for this episode, I had
Oh yeah.
a nice little idea, and I've been this is one that I've had in the back of my mind for quite a bit, and I really want you guys to play along and think of these three things that you would apply into your own personal life. Put them in the comments. Come on, put them in the comments. Share with the world. And basically, what I want to do is uh, get an idea for myself and for Danny as to what we want to accomplish throughout our lives, outside of our career, outside of money, and outside of relationships and family. So for the most part, we're playing two main games, especially when we're young. We're playing the money game. We want to make it financially. We want to get our nest egg built. We want to just make sure that our expenses are covered. And eventually, we want to have enough resources to be able to provide for a family. And then the family part comes along, right? You got to find a good woman, have the family, make sure that the kids are going to be set up well, make sure you can raise them well. And those are two very, very big priorities that pretty much everyone has, especially in countries like America, where we got jobs and bills and stuff to worry about, right? So something I like to think about a lot to kind of extend myself beyond that a little bit is what kind of games would I play once those first two are already taken care of? Meaning, what are some things that I want to accomplish throughout my life that when I look back, when it's all over, I'm really proud of, and they have nothing to do with careers, finances, family, anything like that. So essentially that's it. We're each going to go through three things that we want to accomplish. They're basically going to be events, achievements, things we want to do, create, experience that are just for the purpose of whether it's learning something, experiencing something, testing ourselves, enjoying something, having a crazy amount of fun, doing something unique. And yeah, it's gonna make for some good conversation. And we're gonna look back at this in 20, 30 years, and we're gonna see how much progress
Hmm.
we
All right. So yeah, let's get into this, Esteban. What's the first thing that you want to accomplish outside of the career? And I do want to point out the career and money is a great motivation for people to get out and do great things into the world. And a lot of people have that ambition and that tenacity to sacrifice everything to get to that financial level. But as we've heard online and from personal experiences, a lot of people kind of get to that level of finances and it's just never enough and they're never fulfilled in their life. So it's definitely important to pursue those things that do bring you value and meaning, um, and that are just difficult and fun and interesting. So, what are you thinking?
For sure. I mean, you can basically put the two together, and they kind of go hand in hand because ultimately, what we should strive for is to be able to have the money to sustain ourselves, to give us the freedom to do these
Yeah,
kinds of things. So you gotta make
you
sure
gotta
that
get.
you don't put the cart before the horse there, and that you have your
Hmm.
ducks in a row to some extent. And that's the way I look at it personally. I think of a lot of these things that I want to accomplish, and then I assign a dollar amount to how much I would need, or what I would need to have set up to have the freedom to do it. And it all works in sync.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta get to that point where you do have the financial freedom and actual freedom in terms of time constraints to be able to pursue these more difficult but maybe more interesting things to you personally. But what's number one for you? What's the number one thing besides career and family that
So
you would want to accomplish in your life, you think?
so I'm not sure if I would put this necessarily number one. Like I'm gonna have three here. but screw it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can definitely put this one very high on my list, and it is to climb a mountain, but not just any mountain. I want to climb an 8,000-meter peak. So for anyone who's familiar with mountaineering, there's only 14 8,000-meter mountains in the world. They're all in the Himalayas, so they're all out there in Nepal, India, China, Pakistan, Bhutan, and they're, of course, they're very hard to climb. And we all know Mount Everest, right? I'm not sure if I would do Mount Everest. I mean, I probably wouldn't be opposed to doing it at some point, but from what I've heard, it has become very commercialized, and a lot of the pure nature Mount Everest experience that you were once able to get
Mm-hmm.
has gotten a little bit more difficult. And I'm seeing these pictures of these insane lines of like 500 climbers trying to get to the top at
Really?
the same time, just because it's gotten so popular. But what we want to do for these is get into the subconscious reasons why we have these goals and why these accomplishments are important to us. And for me, with climbing an 8,000 meter peak, it's a few reasons. First of all, it's going to be possibly the hardest test of physical prowess and physical strength that I could ever have. You're out there for multiple weeks at a time. It's not like you're going on a hike where you can get that thing up and you can go up and down in a day or two. No, you're
Mm-hmm.
setting up. You're setting up at base camp. You're having to acclimatize. You're going. You're doing essentially laps from camp to camp in order to make sure that your oxygen levels are where they need to be. You're running on the treadmill with an oxygen deprivation mask for months before you even fly out to the campsite,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a long, arduous process. And there's tons of preparation before you go. There's tons of preparation when you're there, and it just takes a crazy toll on your body. So I think if I can pull it off, and I can spend that much time at that high of an elevation and still manage to take my legs all the way up to the summit, then that probably speaks pretty highly of the physical shape that I'm in. Another reason, and this one might sound a little bit morbid, literally, is there's a pretty considerable chance, it's not super high, but there's a decent chance that you could die. So, that might sound freaky to some people, but that's part of what makes getting to the summit so much more of an achievement. With some of these mountains, probably not the first ones I would do. It's like 1 to 4 in terms of successful summits to deaths. Now that can be a little bit misleading if you say a 1 in 4 death rate. It's not like 25% of people who touch the mountain die, but I mean a lot of people try to climb these mountains and they don't make it back. Whether
Mm-hmm.
their brains weren't acclimatized, and I can't remember the exact terms. I think oxygen deprivation narcosis or something like that. They go crazy, and they just
Yeah.
pass out, frostbite, an avalanche,
Yeah.
you fall into a crevasse,
Yeah.
um, you fall asleep in the tent and you don't wake up. Like there's a lot of stuff that can happen up
Mm-hmm.
there. In a way, that's like
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. Like yes, it's scary and you have to be extremely prepared, but to be able to act in the face of potentially dying and still accomplishing something like that, it would just be super awesome. So yeah, that's a couple of my first reasons. Danny, what would be your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's something. Yeah, it's definitely crazy. I would not volunteer to do that, but it is a long journey, and it's not just climbing the mountains, all the stuff that leads up to it. And it is an attest to your physical strength and mental capacity and discipline. So I mean, a lot of people that have actually summited Everest, for example, come down and they say that's the greatest achievement of their entire life. I think because of the amount of sacrifice and how difficult it is. And like with this CPA stuff that I'm doing, it's boring, long, tedious, and difficult. But what I keep telling myself, and I hope all you guys feel the same way, is, and you should, is the things that are the most meaningful in your life are the things that are usually the most difficult. So go out into the world and do things that are difficult and not easy. And that's where you're going to find your purpose and meaning and growth. By definition, you go to the gym, your muscles can't grow unless you tear the muscle fibers and feed them with protein so that they can grow over time slowly and surely. And same thing with life. But I mean, Yeah, high risk there, Esteban.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean that's definitely a common theme we could apply to a lot of these things that we'll talk about today and things we talked about in the past as well. You do it because it's hard. You know, the difficulty is a
Hmm.
part of the appeal. And yeah, in
Hmm.
this case, there could be a decent chance that I try to I get up on the slopes and I never make it back, and my body ends up frozen on the side of a mountain for decades. But that's that's the same fear that a lot of people have going into it. And like you said, it's that type of achievement that you have when you get back down is just something else. And dude, not to mention the type of how imagine how far that would look. Just getting a picture of you
Yeah.
on top of the Himalayas,
Yeah.
with the oxygen mask on and all the gear. It's like, yeah, like I did that. Have you climbed a Himalayan mountain? Oh, probably not. Well, I have. Just kidding. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't try to boast about it. But another kind of driving force for it is you're living super uncomfortably the entire time. You're having to poop in bags. You're having to sleep in these cramped little tents. Sometimes a storm will come and you just gotta shack up in the tent until it passes
Hmm.
through. And and in a way, what I've heard is a lot of people have a lot more appreciation for their day-to-day lives back home
Hmm.
after spending a month and a half on a mountain like that, because you don't have the conveniences that you have here. Not to mention when you walk outside, it's below freezing 24/7. So I think doing something like that in order to be able to enjoy the cup of coffee in the morning and enjoy laying in my bed at
Hmm.
night a little
Hmm.
bit more would be kind of
Warm water.
cool, right?
Yeah, and I think the or the Tates talked about that too a little bit. Not to bring them up a whole bunch, but
Hmm.
when they came back from Romanian prison, which is pretty brutal from what I can tell, they're like, yeah, we take so many things for granted, and it kind of makes you appreciate the things that we have a lot more going through those strenuous environments.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean that would be something, Esteban. I mean, good luck.
I'm gonna do it.
When would you want to do that?
Yeah, so in terms of timelines, I would think as early as my late 20s or as late as my late 40s, really. From what I've heard, there's, you've got, it's not the type of thing where you need to be super, super young in order to pull it off. But
Hmm.
just as soon as I'm up for it, I have the time to train and I have, 2, 3 months to set aside for the actual expedition. I would do it. And I would probably want to do probably a handful of smaller mountains beforehand. So that's definitely
Hmm.
important. You don't want to go to the Himalayas for your first rodeo. Some people do. They pay some expedition company 100 grand to take them up Everest. I don't know if I would go that far. I would probably want to do it with a group of other climbers that I can kind of
Hmm.
depend on. Um, but yeah, I would say maybe when I'm like 35, 36, something like that.
I mean, yeah, I would assume it's probably obviously you need to be financially free to some extent, and you need to be able to take off all that time from your career or your work. And then lastly, it would probably be more ideal if you didn't already have a family and kids to be gone for that long and take that risk. So, I mean, if I were to do it, it'd be as young as possible,
I
but you
see.
still have to meet those previous requirements.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that should wrap that one up. Let's hear your first one.
Yeah, well, so as all my friends know, I'm a Florida native, born in South Florida, West Palm Beach, and probably my favorite thing to do is to go offshore deep sea fishing slash snorkeling and spearfishing or getting lobster and crabs and stuff like that. So I think whenever, if I can have that financial freedom and that time, hopefully before I retire, I want to hit all the great reefs around the world and fishing spots and hit all the big game. So you got, I've killed a shark, so that was fun. But
Ooh.
you got halibut, marlin, sailfish. I want to get some big mahi mahi or dolphins, um, and then hit like the Great Barrier Reef, do some crabbing, get some lobster from all around the world. Indonesia, the Philippines, go to all those beautiful places, do spearfishing and fishing, and then you got your tunas and stuff like that. So I think that would be an accomplishment if I can like have a checklist of all the fish, the big game and small game that I want to catch, and have a picture of next to that massive tuna or something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool and a cool accomplishment, and also just something to look forward to and to strive for. It's like we already have a vacation idea. We're gonna go spearfishing in the Great Barrier Reef or something like that, and hit all those cool spots. I just love being on the water and seeing the nature. And it's just something about the ocean, the vast emptiness and unknown is so it like really like you said, you want to do something that's risky. I mean, it's not definitely not as risky, but it brings out that
Yeah.
adrenaline and just that you're facing your fears and you're facing the unknown. And it's the same thing in life. You gotta go out into the world and do what's difficult and face the unknown and learn something new and see new things. So that's kind of the reason why I want to do all that. And it's just really enjoyable.
It sounds like a good time for sure. And I can
Mm-hmm.
see how it would be really fulfilling to go out there. I'm guessing you would be going with some sort of crew, bring some of your friends. You know, you're gearing up the boat,
Yeah,
you're going
cool
out to the
memories.
ocean, and there's a chance that you don't catch the fish you want to catch. You know, it's not easy. You're having to be very patient, and once that fish bites on, you better be ready. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a mission. You know, you're going out there and you're hunting for
Yeah,
something, and then you get a
yeah,
trophy to take home. Or I mean, maybe you would throw it back in the water, but I would hope you can take it home and put it on your wall.
yeah.
And those specifically the the only type of real deep sea fishing that I'm somewhat familiar with is marlin fishing, and
Mm-hmm.
that just seems like another level. And those fish are so huge, they're coming so fast. So yeah, definitely no small feat there. And dude, that if you get like a big mahi mahi, or like
Mm-hmm.
a massive tuna, bro, that would go. Wouldn't that just go so hard for the dating profiles? The picture of you with the fish.
For the LinkedIn, yeah.
For the LinkedIn. Yeah, I would see those memes about like, oh, avoid the guys with the fish picture, but nah.
Yeah. And then the deep sea spearfishing. I've done offshore spearfishing, kind of shallow waters. I want to really work on my free diving and scuba diving, and then be able to do that deep sea stuff and spear massive, like a good sized tuna
So
or
you're going into
mahi
the
or
water and
wahoo. Yeah.
you're shooting them.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then bow fishing I've done as well, so that's fun. Do that at night, shoot some flounder, sheep's head. Um, and then yeah, halibut would be probably you got to spear those things. That would be sick. Up in the cold ass waters up north.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but yeah, that's one of my goals.
So basically,
Something to keep me
fish the whole world,
occupied, huh?
like fish the whole world, pretty much, or like
Yeah, fish the whole world. Yeah,
the major cool
yeah, all the
spots.
major spots, all the major fish.
Nice.
See some cool places, make some cool memories.
All right.
Hopefully, meet some people along the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll be looking forward to seeing those on your gram and on the wall.
yeah.
So,
And like we said, we're gonna look back on this 20 years from now. This video, it's still gonna be on YouTube or
right.
whoever buys YouTube, whatever that company is gonna be called. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's still up there.
Hopefully,
Or the AI is just gonna delete everything, delete all human consciousness,
right.
including all the videos we made.
We got to throw these on like a hard drive or something.
Yeah,
'Cause I definitely want my kids to see this.
yeah, that'd be
So
funny.
for my next one, it's kind of related to yours, and it could enable me to do some pretty cool fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn how to fly a plane. I want to get a pilot's license, and either buy or maybe just lease for a period of time some sort of plane, maybe like a little Cessna or something, or one of those little Honda planes, and
Mm-hmm.
and I want to take my family around on some trips with it. I think that would be super cool. It would give me a just a really strong sense of freedom. You know, I'm the pilot. I can fly around. I can go where I want. of course, there's a lot of logistics that go behind that in terms of getting the plane, where to
Mm-hmm.
fly, where to park it, where to store it, et cetera, et cetera. So it probably wouldn't be something that I hold on to for too long, but for at least a period of time, be able to take my family and go see some pretty cool parts of the world. I would think to do a little bit of island hopping, specifically in Southeast Asia. I know a lot of people do that, like in the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
in Indonesia. Be able to go from island to island, see some cool beaches, rent a cabin for a couple nights, maybe do a little bit of fishing, try some food, and I think just the memories that I'd be able to make with my wife and kids up in the sky would be super awesome. So obviously that would take a lot of time. I'm not exactly sure how many hours I would need, but it would be a solid chunk of time, and of
Yeah,
course
it's
I
a
would have
lot.
to have the resources to be able to pull it off. But I just think that what it would enable me to do would be absolutely, the type of things I'd be thinking back on when I'm really old and reminiscing on the good old days. That would be really fun.
Yeah, so I actually have kind of sort of flown a plane.
Okay.
My neighbor had a single propeller plane back in Dunwoody. What's that? DeKalb.
Petrie de
Um,
Cap.
yeah, Petrie DeKalb Airport or whatever. So we flew out of there. Obviously, he took off and he landed it, but once we got in the air, he let me control it a little bit. And he gave me a little like little poster that said I was a first time flyer or whatever. But yeah, flying is pretty cool. I can't really even explain it except when you're in the air actually controlling those smaller planes, it just feels like you're floating, like kind of at that apex. Like if you go down a roller coaster real fast and you're like coming
Mm,
up, it's like that feeling constantly. So it's pretty cool. But like you said, to get those flying hours, I mean, it is pretty expensive, and to get your license, and it just takes a lot of hours, a lot of flight hours. But definitely something pretty cool. Everyone that I know that's a licensed pilot and has their own little plane loves to do it because you can just go from point A to point B. When you drive, you have to think about traffic, stopping, terrain, and then roads. And so you're never really taking a direct route. So even though you're in those smaller planes, you're not really going as fast miles per hour wise as a car usually. You get there so much quicker because you just go point A, point B, no traffic, nothing stopping you, and no stops. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah, I've been a passenger in some pretty small little propeller planes, and I
Mm,
definitely know that feeling you're talking about.
yeah.
And yeah, I would hope to do it. Maybe, I mean, who knows how this would change over time, but I'm sure in other parts of the world, the requirements in terms of ultimately money, and time to some extent might be a little bit lower. Of course, the FAA in the
hmm
United States does not play around at all. So, you got to be very experienced. You got to really, really cross your T's and dot your I's if you want to fly here. Um, but hopefully I would be, like I said, maybe Southeast Asia, maybe a little bit of Latin America, something like that. Get to see some really cool nature. And yeah, for me this is more of a family thing. So yeah, in terms of timeline, maybe like
hmm
40s, 50s, maybe even 60s, and just be
hmm
able to have some good memories there. I'm also it, as of late over these past like 6 months or so, I've become a little bit of a plane geek, just like learning about planes, mostly like big airliners and stuff, like how they work, different models, different routes, different airports,
Uh
stuff
huh.
like that. I think it's all super cool. Maybe it just ties into the itch that I have to travel, and
hmm
and yeah, I think obviously I would have to learn a lot to get to that point, and that'd be the type of knowledge that I think would be actually valuable.
Yeah. Well, do you think the Earth is flat or round?
I guess I'll have to get up there and find out.
You gotta fly high
I'll,
enough to
I'll
find
just
out.
pull back until we stall, but I'll see it.
Yeah. When I looked it up though, for a private pilot certificate, you only need 40 hours of flight time, which is at least 20 hours of flight training and at least 10 hours of solo flight.
What?
So, yeah, I don't know.
It's nothing.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Maybe that
You just
only
gotta
lets you
pay for
fly
all the
like
training.
with like as a co-pilot.
That's definitely, you can't really like no commercial flight. It says
Okay.
airline transport is 1,500 hours of flight
Okay.
time.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
that's
shoot.
just private pilot license, 40 hours, I guess.
Yeah, maybe I could just dedicate a year to it, and that's all I need.
Yeah, not even. But yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. And like you said, that freedom to just go
Right.
anywhere really at any time. And that's kind of also my concern when it comes to EVs, electric vehicles. It's all EVs are on the grid, and to charge,
Hmm.
you have to plug in somewhere. And they're also recording everything at all times to get more information. Like Tesla is more of an information company now than it is an EV company. And that freedom that you're talking about is kind of getting deleted from people nowadays, even with non-electric cars, like that everything in the front console is connected to the Wi-Fi or the internet now, and
Right.
just tracking us at all times. But the old combustion engines that you can still get from Facebook Marketplace or whatever, you can really have that freedom to go anywhere and no one knows where you're going. You can just pay cash at the gas station and take off.
Yep. Well, cash. Careful. You won't have cash for much longer.
Hmm. What are you saying?
Oh, dude.
They
We
they
could
won't
rip an
take it?
episode on that one.
I
CBDCs,
mean, yeah.
dude. You'll have US dollar token. That's what you'll be buying that gas with.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Bitcoin.
All right. All
I
right.
sold all my Bitcoin.
What
I'm
you
not a
got?
financial advisor, but I sold everything.
All
This is not financial advice. Yeah, so my other thing that I definitely want to accomplish, and this might be up there with fishing as well, is to write at least 3 books in my lifetime.
That's sick.
And I figure, I mean, we'll just see where my career ends up taking off, but hopefully when I get older and have the time, I can devote more time to this. But I figure it this way, like, how many people do you know read a book, read books on a regular basis? Like maybe just me.
Not. I know a couple friends.
I know like maybe 2 people, 3 people, right? Um, I think back in the day that used to not quite be the case, and more people actually read. Definitely
Mm,
more older people read than younger people. And so I figured this way, if I read for and practice writing, whether it be articles, blogs, or just in terms of like journaling or keeping up with stuff, and I start actually trying to write for, let's say I'm 22 now, for 20 years when I'm 42, I figure I'll be pretty darn good at it, especially relative to all the people that we know that don't read and don't write. And hopefully by that time I'll have enough life experience and wisdom to have something meaningful to say in written form, and be pretty good at articulating it in words. And maybe that will lead to some opportunities financially or otherwise when it comes to writing books, but also just have that, like, Friedrich Nietzsche is still alive today in his books, even though his body's dead. So have that legacy live on, and also just commit to doing something. I know Jordan Peterson, when he wrote Maps of Meaning, I think for his like graduate school and PhD or whatever, he devoted pretty much years of his life, day in and day out. And even when he wasn't writing, he wrote for hours a day. And even when he wasn't writing, he was just thinking about writing. And I think even though that's super difficult, like we've been saying, I think that's something meaningful that you can always look back on and say, I accomplished this and I did this to the best of my ability, and have that written document of your legacy that hopefully can live on through generations. So, and then, I was thinking in my lane, it'll probably be more like philosophy, maybe religion, maybe self improvement, or business/financial success. So something along those lines.
yeah, that's a good
But
one.
yeah, you were talking about that as well a little
That's a
bit.
good one. Yeah, when I saw you throw that in the note, I was like, dang, dude, that's a good one. I
Mm-hmm.
remember, on the topic of legacy. Of course, now we have digital media, right? And in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
unless the AI deletes it, we are leaving legacy by making this episode right now.
Yeah.
But there is something special about written work and about literature that is just timeless. All
Mm-hmm.
these great authors that you can think of. I'm in a part of Missouri right now where Mark Twain's really famous. Apparently, he grew
Mm.
up around here.
Cool.
And all these, just all these great authors like Marcus Aurelius. We had talked about meditation.
Yeah.
He lived
Hmm.
thousands of years ago, and yet it feels like you almost know him. And it's it's something different when it's when you have words, writing, and just pages and pages and pages of your own creation. And I remember growing up, my grandfather was an author. He wrote mostly legal work, like legal books.
Hmm.
He was the president of the law school at the University of Puerto Rico. So big lawyer guy.
Hmm.
My dad eventually followed in his footsteps to some extent. He's made his career as an attorney, and I remember picking up these books because we always had them at home, and they'd have my grandpa's name on them, and I would flip through them, not knowing what the hell I was reading, but it was
Uh-huh.
sick because it's like, oh, my grandpa wrote this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and there was a bunch of different volumes. We had this whole collection on our shelf, and it was cool. Like he passed away in 2014 when I was pretty young, but even before and then after he passed away, I would pick up these books and just it was awesome. And I can think of like, wow, like that I would want to, and I'm sure you do as well, instill that
Hmm.
same
Hmm.
feeling in my grandson
Hmm.
or my
Hmm.
granddaughter, right? Or my great grandson, great granddaughter. Like, oh shoot, look, it's granddaddy's book, and they can read it.
Hmm.
And it's definitely that legacy that you're leaving behind through it is you know I think one of the best ways that you can go about extending your existence
Hmm.
beyond the biological, right?
Yeah. Like you said, that's definitely a great influence, and you're paving the path for future generations. So, like in for your example, you and I think my great grandpa wrote a book as well. So that I thought that was pretty cool, and just makes you feel like, hey, if he did it, so can I. And man, this is cool. He actually wrote a book, and you're just kind of paving the way for your future generations. And like you said, Marcus Aurelius, he's really the father of Stoicism, which is still talked about a lot today, or like even to go on the other side, like Karl Marx's Marxism. And I think it's just like if you have literature that articulates your ideas in written form, it's a reference for students of yours to refer back to, instead of podcast like talking on a camera. It's just harder to do that. You can't quite reference the material as
Mm-hmm.
well,
Good point.
and it's hard to know exactly what you're saying. But when you write it, you really have to think a lot about how it should be articulated, and you can kind of give the reader an idea of how to interpret it. And then that can get referenced and built upon over time, such as like all the great philosophers have in the past. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one for sure. And
yeah, I figure if we start doing stuff now that's difficult or not common, then when we're 20 years from now, when we're 40, 50 years old, we might be pretty good at it and make a difference, be able to make a difference.
yep. Yeah,
Hmm.
and the process of writing it is probably
Hmm.
quite an experience as well because you're working on something, you're really focused on it. It's always in the back of your mind, and
Hmm.
uh, you know, common theme for this whole episode. But you think of a lot of people, they have their midlife crisis,
Hmm.
or maybe they're retired and they don't know what the hell to do with their time. But if you all you need is a pen and a paper, right? One page at a time. It's like a constantly growing. It's like a tree that you're watering every day, and then
Hmm.
yeah, once it's done, if you publish it, it's it's like it's a big event that culminated from
Uh-huh.
thousands of hours potentially of hard work. But it's not that hard. It's just time. It's a lot of thinking, a lot of reflection. You probably learn more about yourself than you've ever known while writing a book, especially if the book's about you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Yep. Well, what do you got, Esteban? Number three.
So
And guys, go along with us. Post in the comments. Hopefully, you're thinking about, and it's not particularly an easy thing to do, but what do
mhm.
you really want? What do you think will give you meaning and purpose in your life? So go along with us.
So I've got another one that's a little bit more of a physical task, and I had a couple
Hmm.
ideas here in terms of which one I wanted to pick for the proper number three. But This one will probably be somewhat sooner rather than later, just because being fit is going to be important. But I want to compete in and win an amateur fight in a martial art. So I want to get back. So I've done a little bit of kickboxing and Muay Thai in the past. I do want to get back, probably back into boxing, do some stand up and really train. And I want to get good enough at it. Do a few tournaments, just compete in a few tournaments, smokers, just whatever events I can get my hands on, and then I want to have a proper fight. And I've had a few friends now that have recently done that, who have gotten really into fighting, and it really hasn't taken them that long. Better part of a year or two is for the most part what you need. It's not like you're fighting in the octagon and the UFC or
Yeah.
anything, but it seems like that type of process just does something to them that sticks around with them for a long time because the training that you're having to do in order to get in the ring is super intense. You're working with your coach damn near every single day. You're very careful with what you eat. You're very careful with what you do with your body. You're very careful with not beating yourself up. You don't want to be drinking too much. You want to be getting good sleep. You want to be hydrated. And then when it comes time to cut weight, that's going to be that's going to be the
Mm-hmm.
dialed in you've ever been with your diet in your entire life, probably, because of just how lean you need to get and just how important it is for that number to look right when you step on that scale. And all along, you're thinking of an opponent, which I think adds a whole another layer to it. Because, like, for example, if I want to climb this
Mm-hmm.
mountain, I am my own opponent. So is nature, right? But for the most part, it's really all up to me. Or when I ran my first marathon a couple years ago, I was my own worst enemy. I was going
Mm-hmm.
out there running miles and miles. But by the time I did my last run leading up to it, I ran 24 miles that day. I felt pretty good. I knew I was going to be able to pull it off because I had done the training and that was it. But when you're fighting, there's always that you don't know how hard your opponent is training.
Mm-hmm.
For every second you slack, that could be a second that they're going hard. So what is that going to do? Motivate you like crazy because you got to win that thing. And especially if you can get a little bit of beef thrown in there for some drama, especially if you hate the guy, um, or if you know it's going to be like live or you're going to have your friends there watching you, you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
lose. Come on. So like
Yeah.
it's training for something and on a whole another level. And then of course when you're in the ring, I bet you just feel alive in such a way that very few people can relate to. You're in the zone. It's like you're a gladiator about to go into battle. You're looking
Mm-hmm.
your opponent in the eyes. You've got all the people around you watching. Your coach is there in the ring with you, and it's like, all right, let's do it. Time to go out there and get punched in the face, but punch him in the face harder. And
Yeah.
and yeah, I just think it's that whole process, and then just the crazy feeling I get when I hopefully knock him out, but I at least my hands going up with the ref at the end of the fight. It would be incredible. Um, so yeah, that would be another big accomplishment I want to have. Hopefully within the next 5 years or so. Honestly, part one thing I do want to do a lot of when I go back to Colombia is train. I already got linked up with a pretty sick boxing coach that I can go do some lessons with. One of my buddies is training with him now, and he's about to do the same thing. And and yeah, it's just like you know, it would be so sick.
Yeah. Well, how do you do that? How do you set that up an amateur fight? Do you have to call somebody out? Do you have to put into a league?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to go about it. I think what a lot of people do is, well, first of all, it's train, right? Just get connected with the space. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, every geographical area is going to have its own events, its own leagues, right? Signing up for tournaments is pretty easy. You really just sign up, pay a fee, and you go. Usually, you want to be sponsored by your gym or your coach, just so they know you're legit. But it's not that high of a barrier to
Okay.
entry. Do a couple tournaments, and then for an actual fight, yeah, you just gotta get connected with whatever org is running it and sign up for a good healthy bit of time in advance. and then sometimes you can already have your opponent in mind, or they'll pick an opponent for you. That they get the card made, they take the picture of you next to the picture of him. They have the date, they have the venue. I think
Yeah.
that part alone would be super awesome to see.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's basically you just got to get connected to the organizers there, and of course have a good coach backing you up.
Yeah. And so, did you want to do MMA or boxing
I would
or
I would
kickboxing?
think one of the two. I probably I don't know. I mean, when I go back into training, I do want to focus mostly on striking, so boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably would start with boxing. I wouldn't be surprised if I do both. But if I start doing some jujitsu as well, I might as well put them together and do an MMA fight. I got a friend who recently won an MMA fight, and that was super cool for him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, most likely boxing to start, but I wouldn't be surprised if I do MMA as well. But it'll be one of those two.
Yeah. I mean, MMA is probably more difficult to get into if you don't have that wrestling background and those leverages understood, um, because you can just get taken to the ground and then get choked out.
But yeah,
So,
you
I
gotta
mean,
do
I
jujitsu.
think, yeah, yeah, well, yeah. Um, Dude, I mean that would be insane, obviously, and I think that's kind of the pool for all these great fighters is that feeling that they get when they knock somebody out and they feel like gladiator and they're you have that enemy at all times in the back of your head, like a literal person
Hmm.
that you're competing against, whether it's in the ring or in training. And I think there's another good quote that kind of goes along with this. It's not only winning the fight, it's the person you have to become in order to be
Hmm.
able to win the fight. And it's the same quote I heard. It's like earning $1 million isn't what matters. It's the person you become to be able to earn $1 million is what matters. The money doesn't actually matter. It's who you become and the journey and the process to get into that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also just a part of who that person is going to be once you can compete, once you can win a fight, someone who really knows how to defend themselves. So that's another thing
Mm-hmm.
too. Of course, I want to train and get good at combat sports anyways. But when you're competing to get in the ring, by the time you're done, you're gonna be feeling like, you know, unless someone's got a tool on them, you're fine pretty much anywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a level of security that I want to have going into the rest of my life. I want to be able to physically protect my loved ones if need be, and I just think there's no better way to truly learn how to do it than to go fight someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Always gotta think about the enemy. You gotta be not a complete monster, but enough of a monster to be able to fend the other actual monsters away.
Yeah, the actual monsters.
Yeah, the actual psychopaths. Um, well, I do have one more, and it's going to be kind of lame, but
Hear it.
I think it has some practicality. I want to like not accomplish, but be able to have especially when I'm older. Now that I'm not in college, I'm not in a fraternity anymore. I mean, always going to be an SAE, but you don't have that social net, that community of all these young people around you. And so something I want to continue doing, and I can start pretty soon, you by the time my career starts, is have hobbies, have a network, have social clubs. So whether it is a group that I play pickleball with, I definitely want to get into some rec basketball leagues, maybe some softball, um, and just really be able to build a community, because I think as you get older and you run out of things to do, just sitting in your apartment or your house alone is probably what leads a lot of people to that midlife crisis, instead of getting outside, touching some grass, hanging out with people, doing something competitive, because I'm quite competitive, I would say, and then just be physically fit as well and just stay coordinated, keep that mind clear. So basketball, pickleball, um, obviously golf, and if I end up in South Florida, like I said, fishing would be a big hobby of mine. So kind of just actually something I want to be able to accomplish is have a network and actually have hobbies. There are so many people that grow up to just be depressed and lonely because and don't know what to do except work and then watch TV and go to sleep because they don't have any actual hobbies. So yeah, golf, fishing, softball, baseball, pickleball, and then basketball, and just be able to compete throughout my life and meet some cool people along the way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a little bit of a broad one, but I mean, it applies. Like having, yeah, having groups of people to do cool stuff with is super important.
Mm-hmm.
And being, I mean, where we can talk about this ad nauseum, and we already have in the past, but like being proactive about actually finding that, I think, is what truly separates
Mm-hmm.
people who have that fruitful social life for their entire
Mm-hmm.
life, and people who maybe do for short periods here and there, but seem to always have these big chunks of loneliness because you can't expect these opportunities to just present themselves to you
Yeah.
or fall
You
right in
gotta.
your lap. You got to go out, you got to sign up for the event. You
Mm-hmm.
gotta reach out to the person running the club, whatever. You gotta send the DM on Instagram. You gotta show up to the meet and greet by yourself. You gotta
Mm-hmm.
be the one to like go out there and find these people, and then you'll soon realize that they want to do the same thing and they want to get to know you. So and then
Mm-hmm.
do cool stuff around that. Um, and uh, and yeah, I mean, climbing a mountain, you'll meet some pretty sick people. You know, catching some gnarly fish, you'll meet some pretty sick people. Um, and one kind of layer I might personally add on to that is starting some sort of organization or group.
Mm-hmm.
I know a couple people now personally who have done just that. They basically have started groups kind of centered around just like the like online type of spaces, but then they might have regular meetups, or they might host events, or they might just have a big group chat where a bunch of people can connect and network. I think starting something like that around some sort of theme that you can provide value into would be really really cool. And yeah, I mean, no, no midlife crisis when you've got the homies.
Yeah. And I think the first step that you need to do in order to join these join these groups and get connected is to do what we're doing now and say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is when I want to do it by, and this is how I'm going to do it. And, we harp on this a lot. You got to have definite goals and actual strategies in order to accomplish those goals, or else you're just going to be sitting around waiting for it to come to you. And in reality, that's not going to happen. You got to ask and you shall find.
Oh yeah, and to some extent,
Um,
I mean, this might sound weird to some people, but a lot of these types of groups that you're going to want to be a part of will be either directly, as in you literally buy a ticket, or indirectly, uh, will have some sort of paywall that you need to get through. Like whether it's buying the ticket to the event, buying your membership into the group, or buying the plane ticket to get to the place. Be willing to do that
mm-hmm.
type of thing. Exchange, like, what is money at the end of the day? It's just a tool we use to live our best life possible. So if you can give away some money in exchange for awesome people to do awesome things with, like, do that all day. Some people have a little bit of a value disconnect there, in that they think that, like, oh well, money's for material things. Like, oh, I'll buy a car, I'll buy a house, I buy food. But like, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
pay to hang out with you. But in reality, if
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that paywall might be a pretty darn good filter, right? And yeah, I mean, especially if later in life you've done pretty well financially, take some of that money and put yourself around the right guys, and don't apologize for it, because at the end of the day, it's like, what would you rather have when you're 85 or 90 and you're on the way out? Money in your bank
Mm-hmm.
account, or people around you?
Yeah, and I've heard that from a good amount of people that it's better to use your money to pay for experiences than to pay for material things
Mm-hmm.
because those memories will last forever. And
Yeah.
one more thing I want to do, and like you need money to do this as well, is to go snowboarding in some cool places,
Okay.
because I think that's pretty sick. So at least Colorado and Canada and stuff like that, go snowboarding. Just to add that on top.
Little Alps, Swiss Alps.
Yeah, that would be sick.
Okay.
Just some nice powder.
Mm-hmm. I'll,
because I just went in North Carolina where it's just it wasn't even real snow, it was just ice. Hurt so bad.
oh wow, you went recently?
But it was still sick. Huh?
You went recently?
That that was like I want to say 2 Christmases ago. So
Oh,
not
okay.
last Christmas, the one before maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard North Carolina don't really cut it.
Nah. Nah. No fresh powder.
Right. I'll add an honorable mention as well. I want to complete an Ironman. I think that'll be
Mm-hmm.
sick. Probably, probably in like Hawaii or Brazil or something. But there's
That
another,
would be sick. Yeah.
yeah, in a dope ass country. Get the picture of me
Yeah.
crossing the finish line. It says like fucking 13 hours or something, 15 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I can never do that, dude. I hate running.
If you tell yourself that, you will.
I mean, I just have no desire. Yeah, you're right though. I mean, I could, but fuck that.
Is what it is. Well, all right.
Running
That
a
was a
marathon.
fun one. Didn't go too long like we have done on some of these guest episodes, but yeah, nice little thought experiment. Let us know what you guys think, or if you don't know, start thinking. Because I mean, at least
Mm-hmm.
for me, like I touched on before, it's these are the types of things that truly incentivize me to put in the work, put the work in day to day. It's not just for the
Mm-hmm.
money. It's not just for the car. It's not just for the house. I don't want to have a car for most of my life, at least a car that I drive every single day and need to be tied down to. That's just me. I don't want to have only one house that I making a massive mortgage payment on. But that's also just me, right? But it's it's being able to have the freedom to do these types of things, and it's those moments, dude. It's on top of the mountain. It's holding the marlin in front of you. It's looking down at the guy that you just knocked out. Like that's living. That's life. So go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Go out and do difficult things and experience the world. Um, and as we keep harping on, the number one thing you need to do primarily first in order to accomplish these things is actually have a goal and articulate it and make a plan and then pursue it and execute and just take it day by day and eventually you'll get there. Hopefully eventually I pass the CPA exam and I'm just going to take it day by day and just
There you
keep telling
go.
myself that what's difficult is inherently meaningful.
Everybody prayers up for Danny's CPA.
Yeah, thanks. But guys, stay tuned. Tomorrow our time we have a very interesting guest coming on. We'll probably upload it in a couple of days from when this goes up. If you guys want to get onto the podcast and you're just a listener and have an interesting story to tell or something you want to talk about, let us know in the comments or DM us or email us, and we'd love to have you. It's been real.
Absolutely. Let's
See
lift
ya.
off.